Good evening. How are you tonight, Joe?
Hey, how's everyone doing? I'm doing well. How you doing, Sean?
Good. Little bright in here, so I thought I'd put some shades on tonight. Yeah,
Yeah.
I see you also have partaken in the shade wearing.
Yeah, I have to have an eye surgery. I'm having a bit of an eye issue with my right eye, so I'll probably be wearing sunglasses on stream for the next few months, but it's all good.
And I have no eye surgery planned, but I didn't want to make Joe have to wear sunglasses and make it strange and awkward. So I said, "Hey, I'm a good co-host, and I'm gonna roll." So I'm rolling with Joe. We're rocking the shades. When when Joe can take his off, I'll take mine off. So I actually really like wearing sunglasses too. So it's all good. I'm usually wearing them and take them off for the show. So bear with us. We don't think we're better or cooler than anyone. We're just
No, I have a medical reason to do this, but hey,
yeah.
it's all good. Yeah, but how's everyone doing out in the chat? Sound off in the chat if you guys are having a good week. Maybe getting some Legion games in on TTS. Maybe you're participating in the Invader League here. Lots of cool stuff coming up for Legion. How you been doing, Sean? What have you been up to?
I've actually been super busy. I've been investing, when I'm not working, because I'm still working from home, of course, and kind of working in two places at once. So that's exceptionally busy. We have a lot of meetings going on with our schools, as you can imagine. But then I'm actually shifting to another school and becoming principal at that school. So I've been really kind of trying to dip my toes in the water in both schools. So that's busy. But on the hobby front, I have been doing a ton of stuff. I've been messing around with the kind of the test footage for battle reports. I've been learning a lot about lighting, trying to get that just set. So Patreon content, I'm starting to cover that giant tree. It's a lot of surface area to cover that tree. I'm quickly realizing that putting bark on by hand is a long process. So I'm about 1/3 done that. So pretty much every night keeping busy. The only thing I'm not doing is A, painting Legion, and B, playing Legion. So, but I am waiting. I'm waiting on some AATs coming. They're in the mail. Much like some other things, as soon as they left, the basically first port on their journey, I stopped getting tracking updates on the 28th for those. So somewhere between the 28th and the 20th they're supposed to arrive here, so I'm eagerly awaiting that.
Nice.
So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we could kind of just jump right into it. We have a special guest on this episode. I don't want to leave him hanging. I know he's hanging out. So
Let's
we're bringing on LJ Peña.
yeah, so
Let's
see.
switch screens and get him in here.
So we have a new special
Hey.
treatment here for on Legion Academy. All the guests, no matter who you are, you get top billing. So Joe and I, we're jammed over here on the side. LJ's commanding the screen, so I told him he needs to do at least 70% of the entertaining in this episode because he's taking 70% of the screen. So we're excellent. So
First off, LJ, love the shirt.
Thank you. I actually recent acquire, fairly new. As I mentioned when we jumped on earlier, I'm currently stuck at my parents' house because we're getting a fumigation done, and my dad was like, "Hey, this shirt was too small for me. You want it?" I said, "Okay."
Yeah, nice. It's a good shirt.
Just before
How
we get
you
into
been?
LJ,
Oh,
just
sorry.
before we go here, Joe, just because we don't usually care too much about milestones, but I think we do have one tonight, though, don't we?
Yeah, this is our 50th podcast episode.
Yeah.
I think we've done a few extra streams. We've done a lot of Friday night fights and stuff that we weren't numbering, but in terms of numbered sequential podcasts, this will be episode number 50.
Nice.
So wanted to have a special guest on, talk to LJ, and have a good show. So we're excited about it. So I also just wanted to say thanks for anyone who's been with us from the beginning and who's been, consuming our content and hanging out with us and listening to us and giving us love and stuff. We really, really appreciate it. Couldn't have done it without you guys, for sure. You guys are definitely the reason we keep going and doing this week after week. And it's really been an amazing experience. So just wanted to say thank you to all the people out there listening, to the Legion community for being extremely awesome and extremely supportive and very cool.
Ditto from me.
Right.
I won't waylay
Yes.
that, but Joe's got it covered well. So,
All right, LJ, how you been, man?
Good. I've been trying to keep on top of, like Sean, trying to keep on top of school stuff during this last month or so since we've talked. It's been crazy just getting everything synthesized and trying to, put a good end of year product together at school and make it feel like we did the best that we could throughout this crazy spring semester. So I've been staying on top of that stuff, and then we ripped out everything in our garage so we could build an office in there, which we just finished this last week, so we could make space for the baby that is due here in about a month.
Nice.
So we're the house is about ready for that. Once the fumigation stuff is done, we'll finish putting the baby stuff together this weekend, and we'll just be waiting for the big day.
Nice. Awesome, man. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of projects happening at once, and a lot of big milestones coming up, and a lot of stuff going on. Have you been? How's your Legion career been going? Have you been getting any games in? I know Invader League's about to start. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, I had some stuff that I definitely wanted to test before this upcoming league hits us.
Mhm.
I'm sure we'll talk about it here in a little bit, but I have definitely been focusing on some new droid stuff just to kind of see what feels good and kind of work on what I was going to bring to this upcoming season, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I've actually been playing a ton of Lord of the Rings.
Nice. Nice.
Because I discovered their battle companies, which is kind of like Skirmish, but a bit more
Yeah.
RPG-ish. And so I joined a battle companies campaign on their TTS Discord for the Lord of the Rings game. And that's actually been a ton of fun. So I'll admit I haven't gotten as much practice in as I wanted to, because that has been really distracting. And then on top of the other stuff I've been doing at the house and whatnot, I haven't been pushing myself to get as many games in. But on the flip side of that coin, I did want to get some hands-on time with VA and some hands-on time with like the Commandos and stuff. So I've definitely been playing a lot of droids in the allowed myself.
Lord of the Rings tangent, even though I would love to talk about it forever, but what faction are you playing?
I've been playing a lot of Isengard.
Nice.
I knew Urakai were going to be my thing if I ever actually seriously played that game, and so I really, even before the pandemic stuff got really bad, I started ordering a bunch of it. And I actually just put in an order for a 3D printer today, which I've been meaning to do for like 2 years now.
Yeah.
And so I'll be able to print. What I want to do is I want to make a display board very similar to the Swamp one that I made that you probably saw at Adepticon in 2019.
Yep.
But I want to print an Amon Hen model and put that on the display board and put magnets in it, so I can put my Uroks on top, like Triumphant on top of that. So I've been playing a little bit of that, and then I've been playing a bit of Dwarves too, because they have a really fun battle company. So yeah, they've been keeping me busy, because it's just been entertaining, and it's a good group over there on that Discord if you ever play that game.
Yeah, I'm in that Discord. It's a great Discord. It's funny that you mentioned Uryx, because literally 5 minutes before the show, Al Paz, friend of the show, messaged me and was like, I got a bunch of Uryx on Sprue if you want to buy them. I was like, all right, man, I'll talk to you after we stream.
I probably have like 60 of them now, because they were super cheap on eBay, and even if I never use that many in the game, I was like, they're going to look really good in a display case somewhere, so I just bought a bunch of them. Nice. And I'm super excited, because now that this office is done, I have a display case I got from IKEA on the way, and I'll have a shelf for all my Legion stuff, or 2 shelves for all the Legion stuff, and a shelf for this, and a shelf for the BattleTech stuff when that Kickstarter finally delivers. So I'll have my nice little giant glass display case shelf thing right there in the office with a little lock on it, so little grabby hands can't get in it.
Nice. Hey, so I wasn't really planning on talking about 3D printing, but just out of curiosity, what 3D printer did you get?
I got an Ender 3 Pro. I wanted to start easy, and that seemed like the dumbest, easiest way to get into it. Everybody was like, just buy an Ender 3, buy an Ender 3. So I was like, well, Creatality was selling them for $100 off, so let's do this.
Hey, you can't argue with the price of that thing. I mean, it's so affordable. And hey, maybe that'll that just means more potential Legion terrain, right? I mean, bringing some, just making your own terrain, adding it to the pile for the tournaments you're going to be running and stuff in the future, I'm sure.
Yeah, I had bought some stuff for Dave back in the really early days, so a friend could print it for me, and so I've already got a small library of stuff that I want to try out. And I used to make a ton of terrain, and I know Sean does a lot of his stuff by hand, and so I'm hoping that I can meld the old me that used to make a ton of stuff just by hand and the random stuff I had lying around in my room with this new world of 3D printing, and hopefully put the old craft and the new craft together. So like for me, as somebody who loves to hobby but doesn't have a good outlet for it anymore, I can't wait to do that.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to see what you come up with, man.
Just to be perfectly clear, I'm just gonna throw in a couple things. I'm making a few notes here for LJ, reference all the baby stuff. So it's not the lock on the IKEA case that you need to worry about. It's that first 1.5 feet that's going to be licked. So that's truthfully what you need to worry about. Just being very clear on that. Also, there's a ton of work.
The fingerprints.
No, it's straight up licking. It's like it doesn't even matter. I was also slightly disappointed you didn't say a case for Legion and a case for the BattleTech. You said shelf, so just try to up your hobby collection there. And then also I wanted to say there's still a ton of hobbying to do on 3D printed stuff. So so you can definitely meld those two together. I think they lend really well, and I think honestly, if you like to kind of explore the more painting, weathering, and sort of the add-on bits, I think that the 3D print is a nice sort of jump start to kind of get you over that. Like, I got nothing to work on, and it's basically it's like a palette. I don't want to call it a paint by numbers and simplify it too much, but it is a nice palette to have those 3D print things to work on, as opposed to scratch building it from nothing. So yeah, but I'm excited. Oh, also, you also said that you're just waiting for baby. Just so you know, all timelines are out the window now. I've discovered that. Everything revolves around baby time. So like even the podcast, if it's bath time, I got to do that first. And in between bedtimes, you'll learn. I'm sure everyone will tell you, and everyone told me, and I was like, yeah. Now I can kind of tote that message along. So yes, your scheduling days are all done. So, and I know you're a teacher, and I am too, and we thrive on that, like that schedulized life. But yeah, it's all over for me. All right, Legion questions.
All right, let's chat Legion. So
also taking notes.
You're in an Invader League bracket that actually I think is a pretty difficult bracket. I know Sean's buddy.
There's one easy guy in there. One easy guy.
Yeah, Sean's buddy Jace is in there, but man,
he is.
I think it's
Which one is he?
He's the guy that has to play before 6 p.m. because it's bedtime after that. So he'll be playing all the afternoon and early games. I'm not sure what he goes by.
Is he the other Republic player, probably?
He likely is playing Republic for sure.
Okay, because I don't know one of the other Droid players, and I don't know the other Republic player as well. But it makes sense now that I think about it. So that's actually kind of funny, because I didn't even realize they were the same person.
Kenobi Rex list, or?
I'd have to check.
Oh, there you go. Ace P47. Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
That's him.
Okay.
So he's actually in chat right now. So yeah, which is weird because it's past his bedtime.
Is he trying to get inside information? Like,
yeah,
man, but you have a tough bracket. It's funny because I heard it first from Sean. He's like, man, Jace has a super tough bracket. And then I looked at it and I was like, oh man, Nima, Kyle, and LJ in that bracket. That's gonna be gonna be a slobber knocker. Is there no guarantee that multiple people move on out of the bracket? Is it just one, or is it usually top two?
It's top two.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so there'll be multiple people that move out of every single bracket. But with this type of bracket, unless somebody slips up and makes a mistake against somebody they weren't expecting a loss against, that's one of those brackets where you could have multiple players with tied record, and it comes down to the victory points that you get. And Invader is different. People asked us, and I say us, but the judging crew that I'm actually not a part of this season, about the new scoring system that they put in the tournament regs that we talked about last time I was with you. And Invader League does its own scoring. We've been using a margin of victory type thing since the very first season we did over 2 years ago. And so I definitely wouldn't be surprised if you had several 4-1 people or a bunch of 3-2s, and it was just up in the air as to who walks away when the smoke clears. So we'll see. Invader, it's always anyone's game. You see people in brackets and you're like, man, I know that person's going to make it a single limbs, and then they don't, because some people are trying new things, or they're playing armies they're not used to. I know Kyle specifically hasn't played a ton of droids because he was waiting for them to get more options, and now he's jumping into them. Nima is a very, very, very well-known Rebel player, and I know Jace, he can be unpredictable in my eyes, and I only say that because I don't have a recorded game in against him. And so, with people that you don't know, you never want to discount them in Invader, because it's that person you've never met before that's going to give you the game of your life. So, I'm honestly very excited for this group. We were joking about which group was the official group of death, and I think Group 8 is our very own Carolina Reaper. That's got a lot of good ones in it. But I'm really happy about my group, and people were like, oh man, but it's really tough, and it's Kyle and Nima, and now I know Jace. And it's like, these are all people that I've had fun with before. I enjoy playing against, or just interacting with. So I'm personally kind of stoked, because I haven't had a ton of really good tests with the list that I'm currently slated to play, and so this will give me a good amount, just a different level of experience than I've been able to get with it in the wild, I think.
Totally. I think that your bracket is definitely one I'm really excited to keep an eye on. The other one that interests me is there's one I saw that's 4 CIS and an Empire.
Well,
and honestly, I really want to see that. Yeah, I'm really excited to see those games. Because when I play CIS, I think my toughest match is CIS. So I don't know if you agree with that or not, but
no, I feel like I make a lot of target priority mistakes in the mirrors. I don't focus on the correct thing, and I know that's a legit problem when you're playing CIS, no matter who you are, is sometimes it can be hard because you spend too much energy on the big bad, and you don't kill the Grievous, or you don't kill the Dooku, so then the B1s just roll over you, or you don't give any attention to the big bad, and then the big bad is able to roll over you. So that's for me, that's the hardest thing as a droid player, is I don't do a good job at focusing things in the correct order, I think. And so luckily I've only got to play against one droid, and I'm pretty sure Kyle and I are going to get our game in this Friday. So if things go well, he'll be my second game. I'll play the Imperial player Moser first, and then I'll be playing Kyle on Naboo. And if you haven't seen that map, it's all rolling hills. They used kind of a new style to make this map, and so you don't think there's a lot of cover on it till you actually look at it. It's like, oh man, I'm fighting in Germany in World War II, because the terrain is so interesting, and I think that's going to be fun, and I'm really excited to play him on that one, because the list is the triple Vibro Sword Commandos that I brought.
Nice. Okay, so let's talk about your list, because that's I want to see what you got and hear about it.
So
I brought the Count Dooku back.
Nice.
The myth, the man, the legend. In my my standard format that I've been running him, reflexes, push, and choke. That's just the way I like to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I brought AT as well for some other other shenanigans. If it works once, it was worth the 10 points.
Yep.
And then the B1s are all regular old B1s with E5Cs, except for the one squad that has the uplink. I did them naked because I wanted to set aside some upgrade points for the commandos. And so the piece de resistance of that list is the 3 full commando droid squads with vibro swords, tenacity, and then 2 of them have comms jammers. And so essentially, I'm just playing double the fall. I'm playing basically the exact same list I did before. I make sure Dooku and the B1s have all the orders, and then the commandos are just full AI the entire time. And I don't care, because it doesn't matter.
Yep.
They just can do their thing effectively without having an order, and I think that's the best part of them, is that they can really mess people up, even though they have to double move, but they've got charge, so it kind of makes up for it a little bit. Yep. And so that's the main list that I've been focusing on for this season. I've actually got another one that has a bid as my wild card that I probably will not talk about. Okay. But it is because that list might come into play later, and nobody knows what that list is yet, because the wild cards you don't have to publicly post. At the beginning of the season. But that list is, I think, what's going to become a little more traditional. Kyle is basically running what I consider to be a traditional list that's got a commander, 6 B1s, and then 2 strikes and a full BX. So you've got like 2 strike teams that have the sniper, and probably like offensive push is a really good one I found. And then another full team that can kind of be like, like a hammer that comes in and smashes something.
So does the full team have a sniper with it, or does it have vibro swords? Okay, it does.
And he put vibro swords on them and the sniper. But I know I've seen some people run the sniper and then the smash squad, I'm going to call it. They also have the shield, because if you put offensive push, shield, and the and an HQ uplink on it, not only can you retain good control of that squad and kind of send it off on a side mission on another part of the board and not have to worry about giving it an order, but also when you recover, you're getting triple the value because you get the shield, the uplink, and offensive pushback. So it's a little expensive, and the BXs I've noticed have been very swingy for me. Either they've done a ton of lifting or they've done nothing. But I think that as a core concept, that squad is really strong. And when you pair something like that with Dooku, it's like, okay, cool, now you've got the cunning aspect as well. And I know I've got 2 Gar and 1 Imperial. Probably will not have cunning, just based on the list that I've seen. I know the Imperial one can, but at the moment it doesn't, and I don't think it's going to. So that'll be, that's one of the things I've been talking to the droid players about, is if your bracket is all clones and rebels, make sure you bring that Dooku out, because that's an advantage you'll have and your opponent won't.
Cunning is massive when you're going against a list that wants to trigger Overwatch. Like when you can get in before they can start handing those standbys out, that's huge.
Yeah. So I've been doing a lot of that theoretical work up front, because this season is a little different than the last one, because it does use a list lock plus wildcard system. So I had to do a little bit more thinking up front this time, and I like how my choices worked out so far. It's a good list.
Yeah, sounds like it. So that's 10 activations, right? So okay. So I mean, in Double the Fall, typically you're running 8. Grievous is a powerhouse for sure. Have you found that 10 activations is it the activation difference that you feel gives you the advantage, or is it just the fact that you have 3 mini Grievouses instead of just 1?
It's just different. Grievous is nice because you do have the Pierce on him, so it's a lot easier for you to guarantee the kills. But, you know, I do find that the commandos can kind of directly replace him when you have so many squads, because they do have the increased, you know, that increased board presence. But really, the reason why the BXs hit the board for me is because they dominate certain scenarios. I mean, they can cause so much disruption in certain battle cards. And I know, for example, with me, I was able to use them very effectively in a recent payload game, because I was able to move all 3 squads up and force them into my opponent's payload very early on. And so not only were they trying to fight through the commandos, they're trying to fight through the comms jammer part of the commandos. And you can spread out all 4 models from each other, and the effect goes from any model in the commando squad. So you can get, I mean, you thought it was bad with Tauntauns, you can get a really big bubble by spreading out your commandos and jam all those orders. And then, you know, he wasn't even able to move his payload at the start of the, like, second turn, because I had 3 units in the payload bubble. And I saw that he hadn't reinforced it very well. He kind of had the payload guarded by, like, 2 squads. So I was able to overwhelm them because the commandos get the scout 3. And then their AI is AI move and dodge. So I was double moving them up anyway without an order.
Yeah.
So that's been a big one I've noticed. On hostage exchange, they can get up there really quickly. You can scout 3 them onto the center box. If you want to, you can get them up there really quick. So yeah, they've just been a real winner for me from that side of the house. And so I wanted to keep testing them because they do have limits. They're only a squad of stormtroopers when it comes to their saves.
For sure.
So they can die really quick, and it can be really disappointing when you lose a squad unexpectedly. But I do find that board presence has really made up for it. And I mean, it's not even, the activations isn't even the thing that do it. I still maintain that an 8-act double the fall list was essentially equivalent of a 10-act list of your faction of your choice.
Yeah.
Because the perfect order control means you activate when you want to. So now I feel like I'm playing a 12 activation list of any other type, because I still have perfect activation control, and it's just as easy because I just leave those commandos in the stack.
Awesome. So I was actually going to ask you, since you did take aggressive tactics, you are essentially on most command cards foregoing issuing orders to your commandos, right?
Yeah.
Unless it's
usually,
a 3-pip, right?
Right. Usually there'll be one that walks up the side, and you can bounce that final B1 order to the commandos. So it's not that you never get it. It's just I go into the game not really expecting it. And then, yeah, on like 3-pip turns, you can do that exact trick where you just give 1 to each commando squad, and then you bounce the 3rd from the B1 chain.
Yeah.
That's totally doable. And then yeah, you get your aggressive tactics search tokens out.
Yeah, because I was just thinking, how valuable is that single red surge save, I guess, you know, relative to maybe you at the time. I'm curious to see, you know, what people tend to get more value out of over the course of, like, the game.
Right. No, and I'm very interested to see how it works out for me too, because with that giant mass of P1s, it might turn out that a Steam leader would have been better, and then I could have had 3 comms jammers. But, you know, I'm not super comfortable with all the crit proliferation that's in the game right now.
Yeah.
I was more comfortable having that aggressive tactics thing instead. And I mean, I think there was a moment in my knowledge and defense final where somebody was like, oh, well, why did you do that with Dooku? I don't see the point. And then he eats a sniper shot with the surge token, and they were like, oh, okay, I see what you did there. And, you know, you just can't buy that kind of thing with any other card in the game. You know, aggressive tactics is going to do it for you. He's only got 1 command slot, so that's where I chose. We'll see if it was the right choice or not.
Right.
Fair enough.
LJ, can you talk a little bit about, I think I missed your AAT loadout, but can you talk a little bit about how the AAT fits the list and kind of what you're seeing its role as, other than being awesome to put on the table?
You know, I still cannot wait to put that thing on the table. That's the only problem, is I'm still waiting to put that thing on the table. It's a Christmas present that's never going to come, apparently. But my favorite AAT loadout is either the OOM pilot, high energy shells, and link targeting array, or Lock Dird with the same. And I did have a game that I recently played that I think was Grievous, a tank, 2 sniper commandos, and then a bunch of B1s, all with the sniper. And it was oppressive. And there was some stuff you could do to bump it up to Dooku and still get 9 activations. And I really do like Dooku and 9 activations with the tank.
Yeah.
Because again, you can take advantage of that cunning, and his command cards, his 2 and 3 pip are units, whereas Grievous's 2 pip is troopers. So when you command the tank with Dooku, you technically get like 1 more order that you can possibly throw on the tank. And so I really appreciate that part of things, that part of Dooku. And then you get the cunning on top of that, and it can make for some awesome opening shots. So that is my preferred way to run the AAT. Unfortunately, it's probably going to wait for its day in court when we finally get a cheaper commander.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that was one of the things I wanted to ask you is, in terms of CIS list diversity, I don't know if the lists have been published or not. I haven't really been paying too much attention, but how many people do you think are going to be running AATs as opposed to, like, let's say, triple commandos?
I know out of the 3 in my group, one of them is a tank list.
Nice.
And he's got, it's either Grievous or Dooku, 6 B1s, a tank, and I've been seeing a lot of single sniper out there. And the way that I've been seeing that run is they'll use the comm slot and put a comms relay on there, so that sometimes they can flex the order to the tank instead, which I think is kind of nifty, and I didn't quite think about that myself, and I'm glad that other people did it, because I think that's a sound strategy. The lists aren't straight up published. They don't usually publish them fully until the single elimination,
Right.
But they basically, you gave them to your group judge, and then your group judge distributed it in your little group Discord. And so they're all out there, and everybody can see them, which is why I was comfortable talking about them. But they're not anywhere public yet. However, I will preface that by saying Bushman is going to do a full list dissection for this season. So
Nice.
You'll get some good data there. But yeah, the commandos have been everywhere. From seeing other people's droids lists they've been posted, they give the droids a lot of flexibility. They're good. The sniper is excellent, especially when you have the surge to hit on the base unit. So I think people have just really been waiting to put them on the table, and they've been rewarded. So I've seen the tank a bit, not like a very small amount, but I'd say let's call it a fair amount. They've definitely been out there, but not as prevalent as the commandos. And then I don't think it's really surprising to anybody, but Cad Bane has been very low on the priority list for people. And I think that's because we only have 1 command card that we can use for him. And so it's a little, risky to take a shot where you only use 1 of his cards. Now, in months down the road, we might be flipping that script and saying, oh, well, I only brought Cad with 1 card anyway because that's the only one I like. But I know that in previous seasons when we've had to do a partial reveal like that, we haven't been able to get a full character's kit in, then it does kind of reduce the amount that it's going to be used. But my hope is that we get some more information on Cad Bane, and he can be used to his full extent during these single eliminations.
Well,
good spot for a segue.
You might want to, yeah. Go ahead.
I didn't want to say it, but I know you gentlemen might have mentioned something. So, Dark Horse.
All right, so let's jump to that screen because my mic kind of spiked there. Let's jump to that screen real quick. We're not going to reveal too much, but let's just set the stage. And then I want to come back because James has a question here wondering about Commando Cards. So maybe what you could do is maybe just share a little bit about some of the stats of them, in case people haven't seen them, and kind of what you like specifically about them, because they kind of seem to be a very integral part of your list. So sure. Let's just jump over here. I'll let Joe kind of go with it. I'll just talk a little bit about when we're going to kind of drop. So... yeah,
so as you guys can see, we got some big big news about Cad Bane for the community. So we've been in talks with Fantasy Flight, and we've been given the privilege, and I'm very, 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 very honored and excited about this, that we're going to be doing a full Cad Bane spoiler show for you guys this coming Saturday, May 9th at 2 p.m. Central Time. So all the command cards will be shown. I won't talk about it yet until the actual show, but there's one command card that's quite tricky and complicated and going to require a whole essentially page of the RRG being added. So we're going to show those RRG changes. We're going to be talking about the new rules that are coming out with the Cad Bane command card. We're going to show his build guide that's going to come in with his how his build options, everything like that. So I think you guys are really going to want to come check us out 2 p.m. Sean, if you want to add anything to that.
No, I think you got it pretty much covered there. Like I said, we'll do a live episode just like this, so you guys will be able to come and see that stuff. We'll pop that up on the screen so you guys can see the intel, see kind of what you've been waiting for. I see Ben and Chad is very excited and can't wait to run 800 points of Cad Bane. So apparently he's waiting for some expensive upgrades. So yeah, that's happening. So I've just been putting up these few little spoilers through the week. Cad Bane, by the way, has some really great quotes. So I was just doing some fun looking for things that Cad has said, and just kind of going back and kind of remembering the scenes has been pretty fun. So one of the best ones is like, hey, it's a nice hat. I really just like that quote. So.
Yeah, and I mean, hey, with the end of the Clone Wars yesterday, the Clone Wars series came to an end. I mean, all the more reason to, take a look at Cad Bane and talk some Clone Wars. We're going to be doing that on our YouTube channel. We'll be streaming it through YouTube. And I don't want to get into too much more right now, but there might be some giveaways, there might be some contests, there might be some other fun reasons to check us out. So definitely, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, Legion Academy on YouTube, please do so. Follow that, and stay tuned for this Saturday when we're going to be doing the big reveal.
That's really exciting.
Yeah,
I'm excited to use me some Cad Dooku together.
Oh man,
that'll be fun. I hope he seems like a good buy. And he's got steady, which is a great keyword. So that alone makes him interesting for me to take. And then you look at that brutal art of him just wailing on the immobilized glove that he's got.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, I need to put that on the table at least once, because I can totally imagine me running that and maybe having him immobilize somebody in place for Grievous, for Dooku, for Commando droids to come and grab. So yeah, that's gonna be fun. And again, I like these bounty hunter type characters that are very good at scenarios. And Boba, he's about these new objectives that we got in Vital Assets, and I think Cad Bane will do something similar for the droids. So I'm very glad that we're getting some news on that front, because I want to see what he does.
I'm hyped. I'm hyped to see what kind of lists people are going to come up with once they see everything. And also just in general, like, not to get into too much detail, we'll save it for the weekend, but man, just the addition of the bounty keyword to the CIS is going to be a massive change for the faction. It's almost like, hey, Republic's had secret mission, Rebels have had secret mission, Empire's had bounty, CIS doesn't really have an extra victory point mechanic. Well, now they do, and he's relatively inexpensive, and he's got some tricks up his sleeve. So I think that there's going to be some cool lists people come up with. I'm excited to see how he kind of changes the way the faction plays.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll get to James's question here, but just kind of to take this question on a little bit of a different path, I'll throw this out to you, LJ, and of course Joe can chime in as well. But you just said something that procked my my thought. Do you feel like the Vital Assets missions are a little bit more of a scenario type feel. I feel like there's more going on in the new missions than there were in the previous ones. They seemed a little bit, not that I want to take away from them, but they seemed a little bit straightforward. I feel that the new missions have just a little bit more to kind of keep in mind, a little bit more of a pace setting element, if you will. So his questions was specifically about commandos, and you talked a little bit about using them in the supply cart mission. And so I wanted to, maybe if you could wrap those two elements together, that'd be good to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, vital assets, more than anything, in my opinion, encourages movement.
Yeah.
And with your regular Droid B1 line, you have an inherent advantage that almost none of the other factions can achieve by ignoring suppression.
Mm-hmm.
And so payload, I have noticed after 4 or 5 iterations recently, is such a favorable mission for droids because you can move and shoot and move and shoot as you follow your payload up the board, and you never have to make that choice of, do I shoot or do I move here to capture an objective with droids, especially when they're backed up with a strong commander like Dooku, who can, make it so your droids don't panic till they hit 6 suppression. Yep. And I think that's going to be such an invaluable trait as we play more and more of these vital asset missions. And so that's what I was kind of experimenting with recently with the commandos, was having them go harass and slow down the other bomb cart, so my opponent has to put more effort into pushing it along. And they can do that very easily with their Scout 3 followed up by double Speed 2 moves. And so, it doesn't really matter what shape the deployment zone is. That inherent ability in them is going to be very strong, and I think will really harass your opponents if you play it the right way and don't just use it to charge straight into them across an open field. But if you invest a couple turns, which again you can accomplish because you have the perfect droid activation control, and really wait to make them hit on like a turn 3 or 4 when your main commander is probably getting in and doing his 1 pip anyway, that's when they're really going to make a lot of money, I feel. In bombing run, they can move very quickly. That's good for bombing run. I mean, there's just no other way around it. It's simple, easy. They can get up there. They can make a mess. In hostage exchange, they're already right up next to the opponent's hostage. And even if they double speed 1 move away, with scale and with 2 speed 2 moves, you can probably catch up to that target and slow them down and make it easier for your, hostage to get away. There's just a lot of playability there, and they work well on all of these missions. They've got also some other benefits that you can think about with like the condition cards. They don't care as much about war weary as your B1 line because they have the courage to anyway. Yeah. They love a lot of the cards in supply deck. You finally have a way to repair droid troopers in supply deck if you get the arc welder. Yeah. And they can grab the card that pops them a free order, which is great for overcoming AI if you need to do that. And then with barricades, okay, cool. Droids get more free barricades.
Droids in cover is never a bad thing, right?
And then the BX commandos can just move over them because again, unhindered, they just fly right through those bad boys. So I mean, like all of this is great for them. Even roll out, which doesn't directly benefit them, is great because you can throw them. Let's say you do have the AAT in your list, you put the AAT right in front of the deployment zone like rollout lets you, and then you have your army move up behind that thing as it zooms around. I mean, there's a lot that they can do with this new stuff, and I think that's why you're seeing so much of them, is because the players have kind of already realized that through the last couple of weeks of preliminary testing. Yeah. And they think it's going to pay off for them, and I do. I think in a big way, commandos are going to pay off, and they work well on old scenarios as well. I already mentioned how they're great on a box grab. They can get up to an intercept point really quick. They're melee focused in my list, so key positions that has you focus on several central points. It works great on, and there's it goes on and on and on. There's a lot you can do with them. And I think people have recognized that, and you're going to see a lot of them once they finally hit the real life tables too.
I want to talk about War Weary for a second, because I've actually heard several people in general, and just having conversations with people, be like, why would you ever put War Weary in your deck? And I think as droids, it's actually phenomenal, because I think that the droid army cares the least about the detrimental effect, and you can in turn use it to punish your opponent.
Right.
Really effective.
You know, there's two armies that I think are really investing in a War Weary these days, and it's clones, because you're running 4 or 5 phase 2s anyway, because they're just really good, and why would you not use more of them? Or, you're a droid player because you don't care because of the way that you've constructed your army. It's weird, War Weary, because if you don't manage yourself very well, you can totally, screw yourself over, and now you've got B1 squads running away, and that's obviously no bueno. But, we're at a weird point in the meta right now where there's a good amount of double commander. And so, like, for droids who were running a double commander list anyway, you can probably use that to your favor. But I'm also seeing a lot of lists that are the exact opposite of that have been solo commander for such a long time. And, like, the Grand Army Republic is a good example of this. They're almost guaranteed these days to be solo, because you're now putting phase 2s and ARC troopers in there. So that's something that you could maybe take advantage of. You might have, Iden being put on the table, and people are like, well, I want to get a ton of other Imperial stuff on the board to support her, so I'm just going to throw her in there and then give her commander, to somebody else and use her as an operative to infiltrate her, and maybe that's something you take advantage of. So we're in like kind of a weird point, because either that card's going to be just disgusting because the list that you're playing against isn't prepared for that kind of fight, or your army has an answer for it. And that's an important thing to remember as we continue to build lists and bid for blue player in, year 3 of Legion, is, do you have an answer for all these cards? And if you don't have a direct answer for a certain card, what are you going to do about it instead? And that, I think, is going to be a really big thing as we get vital assets out there in the wild.
Totally.
Yeah. So LJ, I just heard you say bid, and that leads me to my next question. Where do you land on the how important is bid going forward? Where do you see yourself kind of coming out in that? Are you skewing towards bid, or are you looking to build a list that can just handle, as you said, all those scenarios? Gotcha.
Yep. And that's honestly though, like, that's me as a player. I really never hit bid, because I found that a lot of times my lists were the same activation as my opponent anyway, and I wanted that last activation advantage. But I like being the red player when it comes to picking battle cards too, because I can potentially arrange a scenario where my opponent has several bad choices that I can push them into by manipulating the second and fourth choice. And that just seems to work well with me. There's a lot of stuff that I've realized, especially over the last year, that, people have told me, well, you should try doing it this way instead. And I've learned that in a certain aspect, I do have to kind of trust myself. Something that really showed that was the right decision. And I felt bad, because for Worlds, I pushed myself into choices that I thought would be good and not choices that I was comfortable with, and it showed, because my record at Worlds 2019 was not very good. I only went 1 and 2. Whereas with Knowledge and Defense, I had a much, much, much better showing and did really, really well. And that's because I just did what I'm comfortable with. So vital assets means that there are going to be scenarios that you could potentially auto lose at. And I know nothing in Legion is ever an auto lose or auto win situation. It never is, because it's a dice game and stuff can always happen.
Yep.
But if your list cannot handle certain amalgamations of scenarios, then you probably need to consider a bid. And you don't necessarily have to take a 20-point bid to be successful, but they're out there already, and people are taking them. I don't think it's nearly as bad as, like, let's say, year 1 KP. year one KP, if you got it as the, blue player, a lot of people consider that to be the game's first auto win scenario. And in a lot of ways, it was super tough, especially if the boards weren't built correctly, which year one, a lot of boards weren't. We were still learning a lot about, terrain.
I've got a story about year one KP in the Michigan GT. I took a 16-point bid and brought a rebel list, and because I was like, I was terrified of red player KP. And I'm walking in there with a 16-point bid, which was like absolutely unheard of in our local scene at the time. So I'm like, I got this. And in my first game, my opponent takes a 20-point bid. Flips which I was like, unbelievable. I didn't even know 20-point bids existed. This is like 6 months into the game. Flips the cards, KP's in the far right position. And I'm just like, well, I might as well concede right here. And sure enough, like he obviously just forced it. We were playing the same game. He takes the 2 barricades right outside of his deployment zone, puts his entire army behind the 2 barricades, and I just have to walk at him while he's just raining fire on my rebels.
Right.
And it's like, I'm suppressed, so I can't even move and shoot. All this, it's like, it was an unwinnable situation. I don't think any of the objectives in Legion currently are that bad like that.
No, so, there's specific combinations that I'm worried about and will try to avoid. But that's why, again, I don't mind being the red player, because if I know my opponent's going to double push towards payload, for example, because let's the bombing run. If they have like Tauntauns or a fast heavy vehicle, they're probably going to push for bombing run because that works towards their play style. Right. I know that with the cards we have arrayed now, I can react better to that.
Yeah,
than I could back in the old days.
Yeah, for sure. I was gonna say too. The other thing about not bidding, and exactly what you're saying, is if you can just identify like the 2 to 3 situations you don't want to be in, you could probably veto around that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's. I think the bid is like very important for specific lists, but I don't think it's one of those things where it's like, if you're not 15+ point bidding, you're probably never going to win. I know I've seen people like kind of think that way, and I get it. But I think it's tied to specific list building choices, and I think you can still build lists, especially CIS lists, like you've said, or even GAR lists that are, let's call them all-comers lists, or are strong enough to hang on most of the objectives and deployments, have a few shortcomings, and maybe you could just kind of veto around that.
Yeah, and that's kind of the current plan for me. And, we'll see how it works out. It might not be a good decision at all, and, I should have thrown some sort of bid in there. But, I think Legion's going to delve into people that are taking, let's say, 15+ point bids, people that take 3-point bids because they're trying to juke people like me who take no bids.
Yeah.
And I think that's very normal, and we've kind of seen it develop already in this the season of the Invader League, and we'll see if it was the right choice. We'll know by the time we hit the finals of the single elimination at the end of June. That's what'll tell you if it was the correct decision or not.
Yeah, I'm actually really interested in that. Like, I'm beating all the 800s. I'm beating all the 799s, right? Like it's not going to beat the 20-point bid, but it still gets you blue, maybe fairly often. Who knows? Mm-hmm. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, I got a little bit of a philosophy on the bidding too, especially now that we're talking about potentially big bids. I feel that leaving points on the table, or off the table rather, I'm always found wanting. I'd rather have more tools than not enough tools in a specific game, and so if I can tool my guys up, I want to do that. I also feel that when it comes to the turn 0 play, that potentially sometimes the cards actually fall not in favor of the blue player, but actually in favor of the red player, meaning the blue player doesn't want to cancel anything in the first slot for fear that you're going to cancel the second to get to the third. So sometimes I find that you can actually potentially truncate their ability to manipulate that turn 0 play. So I like that. And another thing is, with the bid being so potentially wide open right now, I think there's too much of a guessing game with taking the correct, as Joe pointed out, take a 15-point bid or a 14-point bid and then get outbidded by somebody with a 20. Do I take a 9-point bid and lose to a 10-point bid? If you're taking a 0-point bid, though, you have 50-50 odds that you're actually going to be the lowest. And that's if you end up getting a tie at 800, then it comes down to the die roll kind of thing. So I feel that there's more maybe stability or more control in taking no bid right now. You know what you're giving up by taking no bid, but you also know a little bit better what you're actually getting. I like that position better. I hate going in thinking I'm going to be one place and then end up another when my opponent gives me their list. So that's my comfort in zero bid.
I think that's totally fair, and I think like even if you look at like LJ's list or something, any of these other lists, you actually might be giving up too much to cut just one upgrade. Like, what would you cut? I mean, would you cut a comms jammer potentially? Then now you have a 5-point bid. Well, then you're giving up.
I'd cut Dooku. Like I'd have to sacrifice Count Dooku, and he's such. I mean, because he comes in at like 204, 205, the way that I like to equip him, and that's too much of a loss for me. Like, I'll run Grievous, and I'll be happy running him, but with this, what it really is a melee-centered list because of the triple vibro jammers, I need that ability to go first and be able to guarantee it through cunning, and that's something that I wouldn't be comfortable giving it up. I think they're a great pair with him, and I had a list I really liked that was Grievous and 3 comms jammer commandos, because now you've got 4 units with scale. Yeah. And I was like, ooh, all right, this is money. And like, when I play Dooku's 2-pip or Grievous's 2-pip, a lot of time there's no trooper units there to give him search tokens because I play him so aggressively. And if I ran him with the triple commandos, then he'd have 3 units to get some search tokens from, or could eat wounds for him, or whatever. So I definitely considered it, and it's something that, if you feel like you need to take a bid because you can't handle certain scenarios, then you should take a bid, because Legion has always been a game that's rewarded you playing the way that you want to and getting better than that version of the game than anybody else around you. It's what's taking lists that other people might think aren't the best and getting them into the top spots of tournaments. It's what makes that viable. So if that plays into your strategy because there's a specific thing you're trying to accomplish with your list, then do that bid. But you did it because it was worthwhile to you, not because, you were worried about, something that somebody said on the internet. Totally. And I think that's something that I think a lot of players are going to fall into, kind of that trap. And, they might reward them, it might hurt them. Only time will tell if that was correct or not. Yeah. Got to play some games.
Yep.
But, I mean, I've been taking 800, and out of the 10 games I played with this Vibro Jammer list, I've gotten blue twice. Yeah. So, it still happens, and you still get it. And if I get my cards on blue, you're in a world for hurt, because we're going to be playing hemmed in, we're going to be playing danger close, we're going to be playing advanced positions, we're going to be playing something that gets these, these stabbers. I don't know if you've ever watched a lot of Futurama, but we're gonna get these clampy robots right up in your face.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. I'm so stoked for Commandos just in general, but yeah, it's I totally. So shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about just briefly the Invader League maps, and also the implications of like looking at some of their designs and hearing a lot of the discussions that have been coming up recently, knowing what some of the local guys have been working on with all this extra hobby time, talking about kind of some of the implications for list building and gameplay. One of the things I've noticed about the Invader League maps is that they're extremely rich in area terrain and like little trenchways and things that are difficult terrain, things that slow your movement down. So any of these units, I think, that have the ability to either get 2 actions because they don't care about suppression so much, aka droids, or have like the scale keyword, or have environmental gear or unhindered or anything like that, I think are going to perform well, just looking at how some of those maps are designed. And I know that there's been a lot of that philosophy being carried over, at least like from the discussions I've heard from some of our local guys in chat. I mean, we're not able to get together and play games, but everyone's been hobbying. People are working on more area terrain, more scattered terrain, stuff like that. Do you think that we're going to see an increased proliferation in things like environmental gear? Do you think that maybe that's even more of a reason to not bid, is slapping some e-gear on a couple units, because we're going to be tar pitted a lot by some of this new map building philosophy? Is that something you think you'll see?
Yeah, I think it's very possible that because there is that wild card mechanic in this season, is you might have somebody that just threw a list out there. You know, maybe they're playing something ridiculous that Sean would like double AATs. And then their list that they actually, just kidding. God, I love those things so much. And now that
somebody said double tank.
Now their list is out there, they're going to switch it up and they're going to react to the maps, and then they'll just say, game one, I'm burning my wild card. This is now the list I'm bringing, because they thought, oh, well, the terrain is going to change the way that I play this game too much, and I need to be able to react to that. I would not be surprised if that's the way some people reacted to it. And again, seeing the maps really validated my choice in the list that I brought, because I have something where, okay, cool, I have commandos that can deal with some of this more difficult terrain that we see on this board. And I think, that was just something that the team really wanted to try this season. They wanted to, Invaders always tried to push the envelope on one thing or the other, whether it be new units or the, type of terrain that we use or the way that we present the tournament. And this was just a very natural stepping stone in that process, because we have this system where we can make maps that are visually very interesting and technically something different than you'd play in person. So I think either you're going to have people that freak out and try to adjust for it.
Yeah, fair.
And go to that wild card side of the house, or they just deal with it and see how their list performs against it. So it's not that a lot of people aren't used to playing with difficult terrain, but I know that that's something we've discussed before, is it's not terrain that people can just easily 3D print and slap on a table, right. Which is what a lot of people have done, because hey, it's easy, why not do it, and then I can play my Legion quicker. And so I hope that people realize that it makes a more complex and interesting game, and we perhaps get some of that stuff in our home inventories. And you start to see that stuff at more of the LVOs and Adepticons of the world. So I really do hope that it has an effect on the wider, tabletop building. FFG did release their guide in the last episode where we talked, and it mentioned that there should be difficult terrain on the board, and I hope that over time that does affect the real world, because I think it just makes for a more interesting board and a more tactically interesting game.
Yeah, and especially when you piggyback that on something you mentioned earlier about vital assets in general just being kind of more movement based,
right?
I think that creates an added layer of interesting complexity. And also gives certain lists like an interesting advantage on certain objectives, and it's more to think about. I'm always of the opinion that, for me, the more options and the more complexity you add to the game, the more interesting it becomes. Maybe from a new player perspective, that becomes a little overwhelming at some point, but I still don't think Legion is nearly as complex as some of these war games and crazy amount of units and rules and such. So I think there's a nice balance between that. But yeah, for sure, I would love to see how the increased proliferation and better, more interesting area terrain has an effect on, like, let's call it the vital assets meta. So
yeah, and I mean, for a lot of people, this is going to be their first experience with vital assets. This is going to be the first time it's tested in kind of that wider community sphere. And I'm actually really glad that we're submitting the list, because then John can really dissect them and see, okay, how many people took vital assets cards? Was there a percentage that took them none at all? You know, and that was something that we talked about within real life tournaments. Was there was people that didn't bring advanced positions or didn't bring vaporators, and it wasn't because they didn't want them. It's because they just simply didn't own them.
Yeah, you have to buy them. You know, that's
right.
the thing. Like, yeah.
And so this is why Invader League always gets this, like, oh, well, you know, we're going to rate it really high against other tournaments. It's because you can just simply do things that you can't do in real life. Like, you know, oh, me owning 3 commando squads, that might actually be, okay, now we're starting to get to the point where, okay, maybe monetarily it is starting to get a little taxing, especially with a baby on the way. Whereas here it's like, hey, I'm going to run triple commandos and 6 rad cannons, which, by the way, is a list I almost submitted.
Ooh.
I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I have 2 other droid opponents, and that wouldn't have been as good against them. But it's still on my running for wild card. Yeah, that's don't discount that one, because 6 rad cannon triple stabber is still on the menu, boys.
And that's the thing, is like, you just double move all the B1s on turn 1, and then on turn 2 they have to deal with it. It's like, you probably lose a bunch of them in turn 1, but you don't lose all of them.
Yeah, fighting a clone list near you.
Yep.
One of these days, I might have to bring that list out off the dead. But yeah, you know, it's going to be a good test. Invader's always a good test of new stuff, and I'm very interested to see what data we pull from the end of this, because you've got so much available to you, and we'll see how these new units make a splash. We'll see how these new scenarios make a splash.
For sure. All right, Sean, you got any other thoughts, questions?
No, I didn't have
any. Need to talk about commandos?
Yeah, well, there was somebody who was just asking about if you wanted to maybe just kind of quickly run through the stats, kind of what your real highlights are. I think also too, for people who don't know a ton about Invader, I'm just kind of picking up what you're putting down about the wild card. Is that a one time within this first round that you can kind of pull a special list out of your hat, or is that one time in the tournament, or how does that mechanic work?
Yeah, so in previous seasons, or I should say previous, because, you know, this is the second season out with the droids, players were worried that because you could use a different list, even though you were locked to the same faction, you could use a different list every game in the round robin stage, that droids in particular would be counterpicked against, because when you played a droid opponent, oh look, I'm using Ion Snows. Yeah, I totally use them all the time.
Yep, they're my go-to.
They're my go-to. And this was no truer than in a game that happened to me last season, where my opponent brought 4 Ion Snows to our game.
Yeah.
And I almost won that game with the AAT double moving and breakthroughing into my opponent's deployment zone. That was a heck of a game that I'll never forget. And so the idea behind the wild card was to kind of help with the counterpicking aspect a little bit. So you have 5 games that you play in the group stage, and by the 3rd game, you can switch to this wild card list that you don't have to post, and you can just say, okay, for game 3, I'm going to use this list, and then you're locked into that list for the rest of the group stage. So you still can't switch like every game like you used to be able to. But one of the big things with Invader was that people use it, like I mentioned earlier, to test units that they've never seen before. And that was the other big reason why I let people switch in the past. And so that rule kind of also helped keep that idea alive a little bit, because let's say I take this experimental list and I play a couple people and it's just terrible, and I realize it was a trash list and I hate it. It gives me a fallback to maybe bring double the fallback on the table or try something else.
Yeah,
I guess on the flip side of that is somebody can see you go 3-0, try to make a game plan against you, and then you just throw the 6 rad cannon list on them.
Yeah, you could. And my clone players in my group, like Jay, should be on the lookout for it, because it might be coming to a game near you, sir.
If you can just use the most obnoxious list possible against him, just so that I can hear the rage quitting and the story all later.
Only if we can double team that podcast whenever the Tuesday after that game happens, I would do it. I've got a 13 activation rebel list that I was looking at too, that's got triple snipers, triple staps, 6 B1s. And I was thinking that might be kind of a fun one too, because man, it's just so many bodies on the board. It
Oh
sounds like a
man.
fun time to me.
That sounds crazy. It's funny that you mentioned that like situation with the ions because I've had that happen to me once. I won't name him. He's a good buddy of mine. I like to tease him, but we have these leagues that we play in for Legion, and usually there's like an entry fee, and then at the end of the league, based on your record, there's like store credit handed out, stuff like that. So there is like incentive to try to win because you'll win more store credit at the end or whatever. And I had a situation once when Dooku first came out, and I showed up and I was like, I'm going to play Dooku 6B1s and 2 Droidicas. I want to try Dooku out. And my opponent was like, oh, I haven't built my list yet. Hold on. I'm just going to build it. He has this whole army with him. And it's like triple comms jammer Tawns, a bunch of Ion Rebels. And I was like, dude, you don't play Ion Rebels. You're literally teching against me on the fly. Like, nobody plays it's 4 or 5 Ion Rebels. Like,
if you see me take droid poppers on the BX Commandos, you know I was tailoring.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was just like, all right, man, whatever. That's hilarious. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff you can do, I guess, when it's like you could switch lists. But I like the way the wild card mechanic is. I think that's kind of cool. It's a nice balance for that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how it goes. And, if people end up not liking it, then next season they make a change. I mean, I've been very vocal about the surveys and stuff. Like at the end of LVO, we talked about that post survey, and I do the same thing at the end of every single Invader. And I mean, look, guys, if you don't fill them out, I'm not going to take your feedback because you didn't fill them out. I didn't get your feedback. So, there were a lot of people that were like, well, where's this coming from? Like, are you trying to be overprotective of like certain factions? And it's like, hey, you guys asked for it. We have the data here to show you if you really want to know. So we'll try it. And again, if it doesn't work, they'll probably change it because I know Tehran is flexible.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Sean, BX Commando droids?
Yeah, we've been skirting around it all night. You might as well get to it here at some point. So, poor viewer's been waiting for 40 minutes, but we got there. We got there.
So the only reason we know anything about the BXs fully is because there was a French leak where we were able to get some hard information on them. And so the BXs are great for 2 reasons. One, because the full squad, they looked at like the scouts for the Imperials and were like, man, this full squad is probably the worst single unit Legion at this point. Let's not do that again. And they made the full squad actually pretty good. And so they've got AI scout and move, so they do have AI, just like other droids have had. They have this strike team version, so you can take them with a solo heavy weapon, and then that guy's your leader. They have some sort of bomb guy that gives out poison tokens that we know nothing about yet, but their sniper comes in at a solid 30 points and is 2 reds at range 1 to 5 with this new fancy keyword, lethal 1. So you can spend an aim token to give them Pierce. So they don't automatically come with Pierce on the sniper, with this new and interesting, but I think it makes for a much more balanced package than we had previously with the snipers of old. Yeah. On top of that, they have Impervious, which is super fancy. Previously, only Grievous had that, so now they get to roll extra dice when Pierce is used against them. Mm-hmm. They have Scale, so they're very mobile and can move up and down for free at the end or beginning of a move. They've got Scout 3, so they can get up into a great starting position at the beginning of the game. And then, of course, they're rounded out with Sharpshooter 1. Fantastic keyword. Everybody knows what that one does. And then their attack dice, not super powerful, but 2 white each, respectable when you consider you've got, four of the double red. It's kind of like you're back in that comfortable seat with stormtroopers in the DLT. The sniper gets rid of whatever cover there is, and then the white dice, whatever hit, do the rest, and they surge to hit. So that sniper's hitting on 7 out of 8 faces, and then so are the white dice. They're hitting on more faces than you usually would, 3 out of 8. So they They do a lot for the droids because they finally provide this mobile unit that's not a 200-point commander that can get in your enemy's face with the vibro swords, or you can just take a super beefy unit with the shields that they come with that give them shield 2, and you can recover that shield to get those 2 points back again. They don't auto-generate like the droidicas do. So they're just a great Swiss Army knife. As I kind of mentioned before, the full squads are kind of a little unreliable, I've noticed, because those 2 white attack dice, but the sniper is very solid and is going to be a very good choice at 30 points a pop. And I, again, have particularly come to enjoy the vibro swords. They don't add an extra model, but it's 6 points, and each guy gets a red and a white attack dice. And then I take them with tenacity, so if I lose a model, I'm still throwing 4 red and 3 white instead of 4 red and 4 white. And I found that has been very powerful, and it's worked out really well for me. So yeah, just a ton of flexibility. They can take a grenade spot. Not that they really use that, but hey, you might be able to flex a smoke grenade on there. And they also take, as I mentioned earlier, a comm slot. So you can throw an HQ uplink and give them an order, or you can get fancy like I did and give them that comms jammer and be extra annoying and try to block some of your opponent's orders. I think stabber squads, the vibro jammer squads, as I've started to call them, are going to be really, really powerful against other droids, because it's just going to be impossible for droids to get their orders when you've got 3 of those running around jamming your opponent. And that's going to be really fun, I think, as the person bringing them. Not as the person playing against them, that's going to suck. But as the person bringing them, hey, throw them in there. They're doing their job just by blocking those droids and popping those AIs.
And I think there's a lot of like other really crazy, interesting, maybe unexplored stuff right now. Just thinking about synergies with Grievous, Grievous's command card that gives Guardian 2 out. You know, now you're running, like a melee ball at your opponent with Grievous and some commandos. They have Guardian. They have a red impervious Guardian, pulling hits away from Grievous in a much more efficient way than B1s used to. And there's like a lot of crazy stuff you can do with them. Scale is super interesting and super strong, especially on a lot of these new maps and stuff. I think they're super, super cool. I'm gonna buy 3 boxes. I mean, as someone who's primarily playing CIS and GAR this year, I'm definitely going all in on them.
Yeah, I was pretty sure I was going to buy 3 boxes for the sculpts, because the stuff they did with the shields and the guns going through them, I mean, I talked to Derek about that, and he was like, yeah, Alex was like, hey, I want them to do this. And he was like, well, we've never done something like that before. And then they did it, and it worked. Yeah. And I'm just like, as a modeler, and we talked about jumping Grievous to death the last time. I cannot wait to do some stuff with these commandos. Oh my god, especially because now we have silhouette rules. I am going to do some kit bashy stuff with them, and the swords and the shields. They're going to be
some commando cartwheels coming up here.
Yeah, they're always doing cartwheels and stuff on the show. Cool stuff. Yeah.
I can't wait.
It'll be the Cirque du Soleil of the Legion world for sure.
There you go. Yeah, so Dirty Dooku and the boys coming in an Invader League near you. Yeah. They're stabbing, they're jumping, they're cartwheeling, they're force pushing. The first time I get Dooku's 3-pip and force push a unit speed 2 into my commando droids, it's going to be great.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome, man. I can't wait. Well, I think we've been going kind of a long time here, so I think we should probably start to wrap up. First of all, I want to say best of luck to you in your Invader League bracket. I'll definitely be keeping a close eye on you and on your performance, And I'm curious to see you smash some commandos into people and see how that plays out. It's going to be fun to watch.
I'm excited. I can't wait. And I had recently, right after defense that John Griffin is on, and I plan to hopefully I guess journal is the best way to put it. My list, how I built it, what I think it can do, and then stream every single one of my games either through somebody else or through myself, so I can kind of look at this information objectively and go, okay, what was I trying to do? Did I actually do any of it? And, you know, how did it work? And, you know, really see if this is a viable strategy, because I think it has some legs to it, and it's time to test it.
For sure, man. That's awesome. Yeah, Team Relentless are making big moves, and you and John both due to have a baby right around the same time. So
and he's having a girl and I'm having a boy. Don't make any insinuations, but he's already made them.
Oh man, watch out for that guy.
I always do.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, best of luck, LJ. Definitely thank you again for coming on. Thanks for being part of our 50th episode, our Revenge of the Fifth special. And yeah, man, we'll definitely be chatting soon here for sure.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you guys were able to have me on, and congrats. And I definitely look forward to the Saturday stream and all the Cad Bane goodness.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was just about to re-plug that one more time for everyone who jumped in late.
Oh, man.
Let's slide over there. We'll slide over there.
He's going to be good. I'm going to buy a Rex, and I'm going to buy a Cad Bane, because I want to put him in the clone armor and do one of those conversions.
Me too. I've been thinking the same thing, man.
Let's not forget that Ben's getting 1 million, so we might have to make sure we get out ahead of his order.
Yeah, I might have to be reaching out to Ben.
Exactly.
Man, I can't find Captain Rex anywhere. Oh man, he's sold out at all the local shops, which I've been contacting, and I have been having some trouble finding him online too, but I digress. I'm sure he'll eventually be back in stock. But okay, yeah, one more time, just wanted to mention it for those of you who tuned in late. This Saturday, Cad Bane special episode. We've got permission from Fantasy Flight to fully spoil Cad Bane. We're going to show all of his command cards. I think to date there's only been one that's been revealed. We're going to show all of his command cards. We're going to show the RRG entry around his, I believe, 3-pip, which is got some new rules, and it's kind of quite complex. Lots to talk about on that. We're going to show his build guide, how he looks like on sprue, and the different ways you can assemble him and stuff. So YouTube, check us out. Legion Academy on YouTube. Subscribe if you haven't. Tune in this Saturday, May 9th at 2 p.m. Central Time for all that awesome stuff.
Yeah, Ben's got us covered too. So he's got Cads for Academy friends. So
nice.
if you're a friend of the show, with the exception of Alpaz, I think everybody just needs to contact Ben, and he'll get your Cads there. So yeah, it's fantastic. Let's just jump over here, Joe. There we go. Perfect. Do you want to just fill folks in? You had a bunch of stuff, I think, go out from the postal service.
So if you placed an order for any of our silhouettes prior to April 20th, they are on their way. And if you've placed an order for any of our silhouettes after April 20th, they're currently in production. So we're going to get the second wave produced here. We'll get them in. I'll airbrush them, get them painted, get them mailed out. And in terms of poker chips, not the best news on that front, dealing with the post office, but we think that they're located somewhere in the Carroll Stream, Illinois distribution center right now, and been kind of going back and forth with the manager of my local post office and one of the floor managers there. I'm going to follow up, get more information, hopefully post it this Friday, any updates we have. We've had people talk about wanting to get in on a second production run for those. If that's the case, we might actually do a second production run, and long term, I don't want to make any promises, but we're going to possibly see if we can, if these are truly lost and like there's no way that they're going to come back, we might just have to straight up get more produced and just send them out again. So we'll let you guys know. Just stay tuned, stay patient. We're trying to be as patient and calm about it as we can, but it's getting really frustrating. And yeah, that's all I really have. But the silhouettes are out, so hopefully people will be getting those later this week, and at least that's something that you guys can enjoy, and we'll see.
Yeah, we are not super stoked on the fact that...
That's all I have for that.
Sorry, I was just going to say. So Joe is following up on the postal service end. It's very unlikely that they've misplaced 135 packages, but they're not 100% sure where they are sitting in that particular distribution center. So we have the right people following up on that, but we appreciate the patience with that, because we can't really make them work harder and we can't make them look more. But they are aware that they have a job to do, and that we are eagerly trying to pursue where the heck this stuff is.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating for everyone. Trust us.
I talked to a guy named Mike, and he literally told me that the facility is a mile long. I'm like, okay, that's great. So yeah, we'll see. But more to come.
Yeah, and we'll be back Saturday, like I said, with the CAD special. So we hope to have something else there. So it's in our best interest to make everything right. Everyone wants to get them, myself included. I don't even have a set, so we'll work really hard on that. We won't do anything additional short of the silhouettes, because we can handle that in-house until we get that sorted. But we don't want to shy away from this experience. Sorry, I got a baby wanting to go to bed. We won't shy away from this experience, but we're definitely learning some stuff, and we're working hard to make it right for everyone. So.
Yep. All right. Well, on that note, I guess everyone hopefully have a good week. Continue to stay safe in this pandemic, and I hope everyone's getting some games in on TTS at the very least. And we'll see you guys on Saturday. Thank you.